My name is Alyssa and I love to read, but over the years I've accumulated a lot of books, 260 to be exact, and now I'm left feeling overwhelmed. So I've decided to embark on a project where I read through my books and try to get my to-be read list down to nothing. I'm calling this project TBR Zero. Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa, I read, and welcome to another video. And today is the first day in this project, the first vlog. I'm super excited. So if you haven't figured out from the intro, I'm embarking on this project where I'm trying to read through my entire TBR. This is the first vlog of this project. So I divided my TBR into 3 different sections. I have entire series, standalones, and incomplete series. And I've decided to focus on entire series because that's my smallest section of my TBR. And within this section, I'm going to focus on series that have the lowest rating. And this may sound strange and weird, but that's because I want to read books that have the higher potential for me to DNF. And that sounds even stranger. The point of this project is to get my TBR down to 0. And the quickest way to do that is to DNF books, which sounds crazy. Obviously, I want to read books that I'm excited about. Don't get me wrong. But as of right now, I want to try and DNF more. That sounds crazy, I know, but that's the plan. That's the plan. I'm going to try books that have the potential of DNFing. Obviously, if I'm loving the book, I'm going to keep reading it. Don't worry, I'm not going to DNF here left and right. I want to read books and enjoy them. But if it has a higher potential for me to DNF it, I'm okay with that because I don't mind DNFing books. That's the way it goes. Sometimes books don't work. And so, you may as well move on to the next one. And luckily for me, my TBR is massive. So I have a spreadsheet here. Yes, I do. I have a spreadsheet here just of the entire series that I own, not every single book. And I've organized it by average rating and of the entire series. So I added up the averages of every single book in that series to figure out what the average rating for that series is using Goodreads. And then I added up the total pages. So one week I want to do the smallest series, like by page count. But this week I'm focusing on average rating overall. Lowest average rating is for Burning Glass by Catherine Purdy. This has the lowest average rating for all the series I own. It has a 3.63 average rating out of the entire 3. I added every single average rating for each book and then divided by 3 because there's 3 books here, and that's the average rating for this entire series. So this is the series I'm going to focus on this vlog. Do I know anything about it? No, of course I don't. Why would I? But it's clearly, as you can tell from the cover, a YA fantasy. So let's learn what this, at least book 1, because I don't want to spoil myself, what this series is about. So it says, Sonia was born with the rare gift to feel what those around her feel, both physically and emotionally, a gift she's kept hidden from the Empire for 17 long years. But when a tragic accident pushes her into the spotlight, Sonia is hauled off to the palace and forced to serve the Emperor as his sovereign overseer. Tasked with sensing the intentions of would-be assassins, Sonia is under constant pressure to protect the Emperor. But Sonia's power is untamed and reckless, and she can't always decipher where other people's impulses end and her own begins. As she struggles to wrangle her abilities, Sonia seeks refuge in her tenuous alliance with the charming yet volatile Emperor Valko and his idealistic younger brother Prince Anton. But when threats of revolution pit the 2 brothers against each other, Sonia must choose which brother to trust and which to betray. In a palace full of dark impulses and warring emotions, Sonia fears that the biggest danger to the Emperor may be herself. I vaguely remember the synopsis, and the things I liked about it was her being sent to a palace. I just love that trope. I'm hoping it's rags to riches. Maybe she lived in poverty, and since she has this ability, she got plucked out of poverty and put into a palace to work for the Emperor, which I also love. And I love that he's possibly not a good guy, but maybe she catches feelings. Maybe she catches feelings for his brother. Love triangle, love that as well. I'm actually kind of excited to try this, and I have been known to like books that have low ratings, so I might end up loving this. Who actually knows? I'm trying to look at how long it is. Okay, so it's longer, but it's like kind of big text, so I'm not overly worried. So it's 490 pages for book 1. And I have here that the overall page count is 1,248 for the entire trilogy. So this is the series I'm going to focus on right now. So book 1 is Burning Glass, book 2 is Crystal Blade, and the last one is Frozen Rain. So let's get on with the vlog. So, I've read up to like page 25 of Burning Glass, and I must confess, this is like the strangest story I've ever read. So strange. So, we follow, what's her name? Sonia. Sorry. We follow Sonia, and she lives in this fantasy world where there's some women or girls who have this special ability where they can like feel people's emotions. Fine, right? So these girls who have these special abilities are usually taken by the emperor or the empire to live with these nuns and train them in this ability, because this ability makes them go crazy. So they get trained, and then senior aurors, that's their names, or their title, get chosen or taken by the emperor to work for them. These young women and girls kind of go crazy. They do weird things to kind of release these feelings and pains and weird emotions. Trigger warning for like depictions of cutting. You don't see anything, but it's talked about. Some girls like pull their hair. Like, I was kind of surprised. And I'm not laughing because I think it's funny. It's just more like, this is so strange. So the people who took Sonia were a nomadic group. They do use the G word in this novel, and I realized afterwards that I probably should not use that term in this video. So I just want to let you know that they do use that term in this novel. And if that's triggering for you, maybe be wary of that. But the group of people that took Sonia in were a nomadic people who moved around a lot. So that was part of her upbringing, was being hidden in caravans and taken in by different groups of nomadic people. They took turns kind of thing. So I just want to let you know that, and I will be making sure not to be using that term in this vlog. But eventually they did find her and take her to this nunnery, I don't know, and started training her. So she's quite new and she doesn't know how to control her emotions. And we're reading from her perspective. And it's so strange because we see her like mental, what's going on in her head when she's experiencing these emotions, and she picks up on the emotions of people around her. And we just saw this scene where so they're at the nunnery, and there's a mob of peasants out at the gate crying out to the people at the monastery because they're hungry, and she feels this emotion and she gets swept up in it, and she kind of goes mad. She feels like she's a peasant and she's deciding to rush out and let them in, even though it's dangerous to let these peasants in. And she's like doing things that she shouldn't because she's just so swept up in it. Like, she hits someone in order to get away, and she locks people up in a room so she can get away to like help these peasants. And then while she's out there in the snow, she's like kind of like out of her mind, she hears wolves, and the wolves are coming after the peasants, and she's acting like a wolf, and she feels like she's part of it's so strange. So you're seeing her perspective. I can't quite decide if I like this or not. It's really interesting, but also extremely wild because I'm just like, oh my goodness, like I can't imagine being thrown from one emotion to the other, and she's like thinks she's these people, or she like picks up on these emotions. She's kind of out of her mind, and it's so strange. So I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm curious and slightly intrigued, but I wasn't expecting it to be this extreme where she like has zero control over herself. I liked it more in the early stages where she just more felt the emotions and had more empathetic feel, like she just picked up on the emotions and felt the emotions. But then when it got to the point where she's like almost becoming like the person or the wolf, I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. So I'm deciding to try and read 50 pages and then see how I'm feeling. Obviously, if I like the book, I'll just keep going. But right now, I'm like not sure how I feel. It's fine. It's not bad or anything. It's just really strange. It's really weird. Weird isn't bad, but I'm not 100% sure. And it's a long book, so I'll read another 25 pages and see how I feel. So I got to page 58, chapter 6, and I've decided to keep going. I'm finding it interesting. I'm liking it. It's good. It's fine. Like I'm not disinterested. So I think I'm going to keep going because I'm enjoying myself and I'm curious to see what happens. She has left the monastery and she's being taken to the palace. So the story's finally starting to happen. It's strange. It's still strange, but interesting. And crazy stuff happened. It definitely did. But I'm enjoying it. I'm curious to see the dynamic between her and the prince. She met the youngest prince. He came to take her to the palace. So she's being taken away. And soon we'll meet his brother, who is the emperor. And they're only like 1 year apart, so they're quite young. It's a young emperor who's not married yet. It sounds like the young prince may start a revolution. That's what the synopsis said. So I'm kind of curious to see what happens. Yeah, I'm interested. I'll update you probably when I get halfway through the book, so stay tuned. So I've been reading Burning Glass. I am more than halfway. I'm on page 328, so I have like 110 pages still. Is that right? No, 160 pages. And I'm liking this. It's very different than a normal YA fantasy. It still reads like a YA fantasy, but there are some like darker themes in here for sure. I'm not saying YA fantasy can't have darker themes, but even though the characters read kind of like your traditional YA characters, the themes are a little darker. So unfortunately, these young women and girls have to have an outlet, and the outlet usually is destructive. So trigger warning, I've already said this several times, but trigger warning for self-harm, like cutting. She does not do that, but she does kind of seek out torture. I won't say what it is. It's not hard to read or anything, but she does inflict self-harm to herself. Like I said, there's some dark themes in here. And even before she gets taken to the palace, there was a massive tragedy that happened, and it was caused by our main character. Many people died. It was an accident. I'll say it that way. It does happen, so even more trigger warnings. Another trigger warning is physical assault. Not quite sexual assault. Maybe some, sexual assault as well. So there are some darker themes in here. The thing that's interesting about this ability, specifically for our main character, is that her ability is even more heightened in compared to other overseers. People thought she was actually strange and unnatural because her ability was so much stronger. She didn't only just feel people's emotions, but she can feel the emotions of animals and people who have deceased, people who have died. If she touches someone's like blood, she can feel what kind of happened and what their emotions were, and she can like go through the motions of those people even though they have passed. And honestly, this main character, she's almost like unreliable at some points, because she can't always determine if she's feeling her own emotions, if it's someone else's emotions, and sometimes she doesn't even know whose emotions they are, whether it's herself or someone else, or who, and if it's someone else, who that person is. And it's almost like the emotions of others kind of turn her into thinking certain ways which she normally wouldn't, but she like takes on these emotions. It's really interesting. It is really interesting. There is some animosity between the two brothers, between the emperor and the prince. They grew up separately to protect them, and they both grew up thinking that they were going to become emperor, and obviously one didn't, the prince. There is a love triangle in its traditional YA fashion to some extent, but also like it's really interesting because, like I said, like she's unreliable at some point, so you're not even 100% sure who she likes throughout this story, because she is picking up the emotions of the people around her, and she feels the way the emperor feels sometimes, and she can't quite determine if she feels the same way or not, and she gets easily swept up in feelings and things like that. So it's really interesting. So she works as his overseer, so she is positioned to protect him and make sure she can feel out enemies that are a threat to the emperor. You're not 100% sure if the emperor is a good guy or a bad guy, and the brother, the prince, has some secrets that she's trying to find out. So I'm really enjoying it. There's some politics involved as well. I feel like she's going to play a pivotal role in maybe shaking some things up. And she's always at risk, because if she fails the emperor, she will die. Like, they will execute her. So there is that kind of threat, but at the same time, the emperor values her so much and is intrigued by her and wants her, but she also like wants to stay true to herself and her own morals. She doesn't always agree with the emperor. I'm not quite feeling like it's a 5-star read, and I have to see by the end of this book if I want to keep going. As of right now, I probably will keep going, but I'm not sure. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. It's good. Is about to die, but I did want to let you know that I finished Burning Glass, and this was such a surprise. I didn't think I would like this at all. I don't know, I don't hear anyone talk about it. I have heard of Catherine Purdy. I think she written the duology, like the Bone Crier duology, so I've heard of her before, and I feel like that series is more popular than this one. This one is her first one, but it's a YA fantasy under HarperCollins. It's specifically Catherine Tegan Books, the imprint under HarperCollins, part of like the YA fantasy genre. It was written a while ago, but I really enjoyed this a lot. It was just so different. I haven't read anything like it. I don't want to say that wholeheartedly. Like, there were still YA tropes in here and things like that, but just like the magic that our main character had was, I haven't read anything by an empath before, and I haven't seen that in YA fantasy before, and seeing her struggle with her power was really interesting. And I kind of liked the love triangle. Eventually it became clear what was the right option, and it wasn't like there's two guys that she can end up with. How it worked out was there was two guys presented to her, and then throughout the novel you could tell which one was actually the right choice for her. There are a lot of darker themes in here, which I personally like. So I don't mind reading darker topics in my YA fantasy. And I liked how she was strong, but she's strong in a different way. If you like a badass heroine, this isn't really her. Like, she doesn't wield a sword or anything like that. She has a different kind of power and strength in her, and I honestly really enjoy reading female characters like that, because as much as I love the badass heroine, not every woman is like that, and so I enjoy reading different types of women in YA fantasy. Her strength is using her power, not wielding a sword. So I really enjoyed that, and I thought her dynamic between her and the Emperor was really interesting, and I liked her dynamic between her and the Prince. There's some tragedy in here, a lot actually. And I don't know, I really liked it. And it ended well. Like, I felt like if I didn't want to continue this series, there was no cliffhanger. It ended. If you didn't feel like continuing the series, you would feel satisfied with this ending, and I definitely felt that way. I still have some questions, which makes me want to pick up the next one. I don't even think I'm debating it. I think I will pick up the next one. If I didn't own the next 2 books, I probably would have been satisfied just leaving it here. That's how I feel with this book. Is like, I really liked it. I enjoyed my time reading it, and I was thoroughly engaged, and I enjoyed the characters, and honestly there wasn't really anything wrong with it, but I was never like obsessed. And usually the obsession I feel in a story is usually my determining factor of whether it's a 4 or 5 star. But I feel like I'm insulting this book if I give it a 4 star, because it was really good. And I enjoyed everything about it. I'm somewhere between a 4 and a 5, so it might be more like a 4.5. I might give it that in the end. So I'll round it up to 5 stars on Goodreads. I don't know why people don't like read this and why it has a lower rating. It's one of my lowest rated series that I own, like all the series. So I don't know, I just find it so surprising because I really liked it. So I'm probably going to be looking up reviews and determining what people think of it. So that'd be interesting. So I do recommend this. If any of that sounds good to you, like, pick up this book. So the next one is, I think this is the second one, Crystal Blade. It's significantly shorter, as you can see. I find this interesting. Like, this is the longest book in the entire trilogy, which is odd. Usually the first book is kind of like the smallest, and then the second one gets a little bit bigger, and then the third is the largest. But like, by each installment it gets shorter and shorter. Like, the third book I think is the shortest, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it lost like popularity, I don't know. But this is the sequel, and I'm going to be continuing on. It's blurbed by Sarah B. Larson, and I looked her up, and I did read one of her books and I didn't really like it, but it was also blurbed, at least the second book, by Amy Kaufman, which is kind of cool. And Amy Kaufman blurbed this one too, and she mentions Sarah B. Larson in her acknowledgements, which I thought was interesting. So I'm going to continue on this trilogy because I'm really enjoying it, and apparently I like books that people don't like. Oh well. So update, I did start Crystal Blade. Sorry, my grandma's peeking. I did start Crystal Blade. I didn't get very far. I read 1 chapter, and I'm not sure how I feel, to be honest. I think what I said last time is that book 1 ended really well, where I didn't 100% feel like I had to keep going. It was a very satisfying ending. I am going to give this a fair chance, though. I'm going to give it 50 pages. That's my line, 50 pages, to see if the story will grip me. And I feel like 50 pages is a good amount to like truly get into the story. In the beginning of the chapter, I was just like, I don't know. And then something mysterious kind of happened, like a mysterious person who's come to kind of threat Sonia, and we don't know who it is. I think I know who it is. So that got me a little bit intrigued. So in total I read 13 pages. I'm gonna read, what's the math there, 37 more pages to see if I'm gripped. But in the beginning I was just like, I don't know. So if I'm not into it, we're gonna move on to the next series that is lowly rated within my entire series section. So I'm not upset if I don't end up reading this, because that means I just move on to the next thing. That's my update right now. I have a lot of errands to do. I wish I read more. I've just been super distracted this morning. I have to run some errands today. So I'm gonna go do that. And it's cold here. The weather's turning. We're gonna get snow on Monday. I'm not sure if I'm 100% mentally prepared for that, but I will have to be, because it's gonna come whether I like it or not. I've just been enjoying fall so much, and the fact that we haven't had snow yet, like, I've just been enjoying no snow, because when the snow comes, and it's here to stay for the next 4 to 6 months. So yeah, snow is snow, right? I also forgot to mention that I'm gonna be going to some thrift stores, and I am gonna look at books. Don't judge me too soon. I have some sequels, but I don't have like book 1 in a series, and that's part of my incomplete series section. I'm just gonna be keeping my eyes open and seeing if I can find any prequels, I guess you can say, or book 1 in the series. So I made a note in my Goodreads, like a section or shelf or whatever, of all the books I need to get in order to get like the first books. Like, I don't know why I do this, is sometimes I see an author that I'm intrigued by and not realize that it's a sequel or something, but I hold on to it because I do want to read it someday. So I have a few of those right now, and so I'm just gonna keep my eyes open. It's not guaranteed I'm gonna get anything, but that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna look for books. Okay, so I may have broken my book buying ban, except I'm not really counting it because it's a nonfiction. I picked up The Wealthy Barber by David Shilton. He is a Canadian businessman, I guess you can say, and this is one of his books, and it's just about money, and I've been meaning to pick this up or read it for a long time now. So I don't consider this part of my TBR necessarily. This is just more like, okay, I need to learn about money, and so I want to pick up this book so that I can read it sometimes, just glean some information. If you don't know who he is, he was one of the dragons on Dragon's Den in like the Canadian version. If you're from the States, Dragon's Den is just basically Shark Tank, except the Canadian version. Shark Tank got made after Dragon's Den. I don't know if you knew that. It first started in the UK, and then Canada did their own production, and then Kevin O'Leary is actually Canadian, and I have a feeling that he started the show or got connections to make the show in the States. So anyways, David Shilton was a dragon on one of a few seasons, I think, on Dragon's Den, and I've heard of this book even before the show, I think. Or like my mom has read it. That you can tell this is like really old copy from like forever ago. It looks dull. It looks so dull. But it's about money, so I want to do some learning. I couldn't find anything that I was specifically looking for. I feel like finding specific Harlequins is going to be like a nightmare. It's going to be really, really hard to find specific ones that I'm looking for, so I don't know how likely it is for me to stumble upon them. I don't think I'm going to go to Valley Village. I found the things I needed to from Goodwill. I just thought I would look since I was already there, and I don't need these books like right away. So I'm at the grocery store. I just have a few more things to pick up, and then I'm gonna go home and hopefully find some reading. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to read that much today. I've been super distracted, but I hope I get some reading done. Okay, so I'm back and I'm gonna try and continue with this and see how it goes. I'm gonna give it the 50 pages that I think it at least deserves, and I'm gonna have a little drink. I got sparkling water. You can see that. There we go. Blueberry pomegranate. It's pretty good. It's the next day and I read way more than I thought I would. So far it's been a journey reading this book. I've been hot and cold, not sure whether I should continue or not in this story. It's okay. It's not as great as the first one, and I don't know if my eyes have just been opened up regarding our main character, or I liked her in book one and now I'm not. For one thing, I was just bored for a good chunk of it. I didn't really care, and then some stuff happened that is overly dramatic, and I was all here for it because I'm like, you know, nothing's really happening. This is kind of fun and interesting, and yes, our main character is making a decision that is not a good decision, but it's, you know, stirring the pot. It's adding some drama to this story, and I was like kind of eating it up. I'm like, finally something fun and interesting is happening. And it was a bad decision. She shouldn't have done it. She's making this big decision, and it's an awful decision. It affects tons of people. It gives them zero consent, but she's choosing to do it because she feels like she has to. So she's making this big decision that affects everyone around her, and it gives them zero agency. She's making this choice for everyone. And then the minute after she makes this decision, she realizes the mistake that she has made and how horrible of a decision this was and how wrong it was. And that's where I was just like, of course, like, it's almost like she just made this decision to do this. And then the minute after, she realized that she shouldn't have done it. And, you know, if anyone put any thought into anything, they would have realized that this decision that she made was morally wrong and not good. But she chose to do it. And, like, I don't care that she did it. I don't care that she made this bad choice. But I would rather her make this decision and just continue to make bad decisions, which I know sounds crazy, but, you know, once you've made a bad decision like this, you may as well keep going, and at least it would have been more interesting. Now I just don't know where it's gonna go. I don't know what's gonna happen. I feel like I'm only interested in the villain in this story. He makes things more interesting. He like stirs the pot a little bit. So right now I'm just here for the drama, really. I feel like I'm reading a fantasy, like soap opera almost. I don't mind people making bad decisions and then I'm just watching the consequences fall apart. Like, I really like soap operas, so I'm not really surprised that I'm enjoying just seeing the drama unfold. If all of this stuff didn't happen, if this dramatic turn didn't happen, I probably would have DNF'd this already. Like I said, I'm most interested in the villain, and I like seeing him, and I like seeing him interact with our main character. It just brings, I don't know, I like them. They're fun to read about. He is the only one saving it for me. So I think as of right now, I probably will finish this. I'm probably going to finish this. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. But before that, this is book 3, Frozen Rain. I kind of want to read the synopsis to see what it says. So I'm allowing myself to be spoiled partially, not overly, but partially for this book, just to see what it says. If I like the direction it takes or what this book is about, then I probably will keep going. But if I read it and I'm like, I don't know if I care, I might still finish this. I'm not too sure. Or I might just not finish the series. I'm going to read this right now, see what I think, and then I'll report back. How about that? Okay, I'm going to do that right now. Okay, this is funny. I just read the first sentence. That's all I read. And I'm already interested. Apparently. Like I said, I only like the villain. He's the most interesting thing in this series. I like villains that get involved with the main character and they have a dynamic together. And I like it when the villain has romantic tension with our main character. I just love that stuff. I know it usually means problematic relationships, but I eat that stuff up so much. So I am going to continue reading this because I care about our villain. I'm finishing this trilogy apparently. Okay, it is time to talk about Crystal Blade because I finished it last night. I was hoping to finish it the day before, but yesterday was a crazy day. We did a lot of decorating and things like that. And then the day before that, I visited my family, so I didn't get to read this as fast as I wanted to. And I'm not happy with this one, to be truly honest. I didn't end up liking it, really. I was hopeful things would happen that didn't happen. I just felt like our protagonist in this one was super wishy-washy. She was constantly going back and forth with her feelings, and I didn't have a problem with that in book 1 for certain reasons. But in this one, she just couldn't stay focused. Like, she couldn't decide what side she was on, basically. And she made some really infuriating decisions. At some points, I was like all for it because she made some really bad decisions, completely immoral decisions that any person would realize and recognize what they're doing is wrong. Even people who make wrong decisions know that they're doing bad things. So she made this really big bad decision that affected everyone around her. It was evil, you could say. The minute after she did that, she felt remorse. For me, it's just like, you would have known what you were doing was wrong before you did it. Like, why weren't you thinking about these things before moving forward with this decision? It was kind of things like that where it was like she was being tempted to do evil and she would do it, and then the minute after she did it, she felt remorse. I don't know, it's just like, I'd rather her like being tempted, if she was tempted to do evil, her assume what she's doing is right, and even after having done it, think she's in the right, and keep going making these wrong decisions, but assuming she's doing the right thing, and by near the end of the book, finally realize what she was doing was wrong, or just not do these things because they're wrong. Like, I don't know, I felt like she was constantly going back and forth. It's hard to talk about without spoilers, so I found her really frustrating as a character. I was also bored. There wasn't a lot, like, stuff happened but not really. I was really bored in the beginning, and people just kept on like forgiving her even though she was like doing these terrible things, which I didn't understand. Like, I felt like there were consequences for her, but the people closest to her like forgave her, and I'm like, why are you forgiving her for doing these terrible things? I was getting to the point where it's like, okay, for this character, she almost has to die because the amount of terrible things she did, there's almost no redemption for her, or she just turns evil. And I was really excited for her turning evil. Like, I thought that would have been fun and interesting thing to read about, but no, she's desperate to try and do good even though she keeps on doing wrong. I don't know, I didn't like it at all. I was reflecting on my rating, and I was gonna give this 3 stars because there were some like scenes that I was like kind of excited about or looking forward to, but then the way it ended and the direction that this character is going and the direction of the story, I just like don't care anymore, and I didn't like this, so I'm giving it 2 stars. And so because of that, I am not continuing on in the series. So the 3rd book is Frozen Rain. I'm not gonna read this. I read the synopsis and I was excited at first, but then having finished Crystal Blade, I misinterpreted the synopsis. So I'm not excited. I don't want to read this at all, so I'm done with this series. I did really like book 1 though a lot, and I felt like it was a satisfying enough ending. You don't have to keep going if you didn't want to, and I almost prefer this on its own. It felt like a pretty satisfying like standalone book. So this vlog is not over, do not worry, but I'm going to move on to the next series that is lowly rated on average out of the entire series, and that is the Hazelwood. I'm actually really excited about this because I haven't read very much. I've only read like 8 pages and I like it so far, which I'm so happy because I was not, as you can tell, I was not happy or enjoying myself with that series anymore. I only read a few pages this morning, but after having read a few, I realized that I think I'm gonna really enjoy this. So from what I gather, Alice and her mom has always been on the run, and not really the run, but they just moved a lot. They moved at least a couple times a year, and Alice doesn't really know why, but it's always been like that. And there was even a time where someone kidnapped her and she didn't realize they kidnapped her, but they did. She lived a nomadic life basically with her mother, constantly moving, and she doesn't know why. It's kind of like clear that like it's strange. There's some kind of strange reason why they do this, but Alice doesn't know why. But in the beginning it says that Althea, who's her grandmother, raised her daughter on fairy tales, and her mother grew up on this estate that Althea owned called the Hazelwood. It's in the forest. They moved there when Anna, Alice's mother, was 5, and she grew up there. And the estate is called the Hazelwood, but I think there's like an actual wood or forest behind the estate. It's very mysterious. Althea, the grandmother, it sounds like she was maybe an actress at one point. And I know in the back it talks about how her grandmother was famous for certain fairy tales. Now I haven't read anything about that yet. I just got to the part where Althea has died and her mother found out, and her mother was obviously not happy that her mother died, but was relieved because she felt like they wouldn't have to keep moving anymore. That's all I know right now, and I'm pretty sure Alice's mother does go missing. That hasn't happened yet, but I'm pretty sure that's what I've heard about the story. And so then Alice goes on an adventure trying to recover her mother or what happened to her. The other thing I need to mention is in the very beginning, it's kind of like a prologue, not even really, where we learn a little bit about Althea, the grandmother. It was rumored that she moved to Manhattan to start a career probably in the entertainment industry. Then she went missing, but then she came back and her career did pretty good for a while, and then that's when she went away again to live in the Hazelwood. So I don't know if this is true or not. My prediction is that obviously there's something mysterious about this estate. There's something mysterious about the forest or the wood behind the estate, and I'm assuming there's going to be some kind of like mythical creatures, and there is some kind of relationship with the mythical creatures and the grandmother and the daughter and now the granddaughter. So that's my prediction. I don't know for sure, but I'm excited to read this. I'm excited. I love fairy tales. I love reading stories about fairy tales, and I love anything to do with like a modern world setting and a mythical forest. Is mythical the right word? I don't know. Like mysterious forest with mythical creatures, whether it's fae or goblins, or I just love that stuff. It's my favorite. So I'm really looking forward to this. morning. I'm exhausted because we got a huge dump of snow and the car that I normally use doesn't have winter tires. So I had to walk the kids to school. It's not far, but the snow in some places is almost up to your knees. So I'm exhausted having walked them to school, and I took them probably through the worst route when it comes to big dumps of snow. A 10-minute walk turned into a 20-minute walk or more. It took a long time. I had to walk back, and then I did some shoveling, so I'm exhausted. That whole adventure took an hour. I have been reading the Hazelwood, and I've been really liking it, and I'm so thankful because I didn't like the last book, so I'm happy to report that I'm enjoying this a lot. And I don't know why this has low ratings because it's really good. I don't know why. So we follow Alice, is the granddaughter of a famous writer who wrote these fairy tales, and they're very hard to come by. It's almost like a cult following because you can't get your hands on these copies, and we don't know why. And now her mother has gone missing, and her mother says don't go towards the Hazelwood, which is the place where her grandmother lived, this estate, and no one knows where it is. And so Alice, with the help of, I need to get his name right, Finch, with the help of Finch, try and find this estate, trying to find her mother. And weird things are happening. There's people kind of sending mysterious notes. Magical things are happening. Along the way, we are learning about some of the stories in these fairy tales. And it's really, really good. It's basically a mystery. You don't know what's going on. And it's kind of weird, you know? There's some kind of paranormal or fairy tale-esque things happening. And it's set in our world. Weird things are happening. I'm loving it. It's interesting. I like the dynamic between her and Finch. I like Finch as a love interest, and things are kind of coming to a head. Not quite, but getting there. I'm on page like 202 and I have 176 pages left. I'll see if I can finish this. That's hopefully my goal. Is to finish this book, but I'm really, really liking it a lot, and I do recommend it. So especially if you like fairy tales, especially if you like urban fantasy. Yeah, I really feel for Alice because her mother's gone missing and now she's like basically alone, and it's just nice that Finch is there to help her. And it's still like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I kind of like that where they're leading clues along the way, but not really. Even though we are interacting with some new characters, I still don't know what they are, how they're really connected to Alice. Like, I am, but I'm not. You don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. So it's great. I'm really enjoying it. So I did finish the Hazelwood just pretty much right now. And the funny thing that happened was I thought I saw like 20 to 30 pages left. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a break and then come back to it. And when I came back to it, I put the bookmark on like the second last page. Like, I didn't realize I was pretty much at the end. I felt so stupid. There's short stories at the end, so I didn't know that. And I'm glad it ended where it did because I was starting to feel like it was dragging already, and I had no idea what possibly could happen for another 30 to 40 pages. I liked this. I actually really did. I had a good time reading this, and it ended kind of like on its own. Like, I'm surprised that there is a sequel in this series because it just kind of ended. Like, it had a really pretty decent conclusion. I liked the first half better. I liked it when it was a bit of a mystery. Alice and Finch were together trying to solve it, and they were in the modern world. And then something happened, and they got separated. And the story really changed. It became a different kind of story than I anticipated. I still really enjoyed my time reading it even afterwards, but I preferred the first half more. It ended up being kind of strange a little bit and not what I was expecting. And I guess that could be a good thing because it was a bit surprising. But at the same time, I preferred more of the mystery aspect than kind of getting the answers. I guess I just didn't like the answers, is maybe what I'm coming to. I wasn't a big fan of the answers provided. I still liked the world that
Melissa developed. Even the second half, like, don't get me wrong, I still really enjoyed it, but I think I'm gonna end up giving this a 4-star rating, and I'm honestly not sure if I'm curious enough to keep going. I kind of looked at some spoilers and I can see myself being interested, but I'm not interested now. And I don't know if I care. That's the thing that I'm feeling right now. I'm not sure if I want to continue. And I'm kind of understanding this series more now having read book 1. Like, I know this is a duology, and it is a duology, but there's no cliffhanger or anything. I'm not like anticipating the next book because this had its own conclusion. And then there's this book, and then there's another book, I think it's just Tales from the Hinterland or something like that. I think that's actually the book mentioned a lot in here, written by her grandmother. So yeah, I don't know. I can see why people really like it, and I do like her story. Like, I can see myself reading more of Melissa Albert if she comes out with another fantasy. I can see myself wanting to read her books. Her writing style is interesting. She has like very interesting choices of like prose. I think that's the best way to describe it. Like, the way she describes things is kind of interesting. Sometimes I found it jarring and a little bit confusing, but I did really like her world and I like the story, so I'm giving it 4 stars. I'm not gonna quite unhaul this yet, but I've decided not to continue for now. I'm gonna hold on to it. Maybe I change my mind a little later, but as of right now, I'm not gonna continue. So I think I'm gonna end the vlog here. So to recap, I read Burning Glass by Catherine Purdy and I gave it 4.5. I think that's my final rating, is 4.5. Then I read Crystal Blade, which is book 2 in that series, and I gave it 2 stars. And then I read The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert and I gave this 4 stars. And I've decided not to continue on with Burning Glass, so I am not going to read Frozen Rain. And I've decided not to continue on in the Hazelwood series, so I am not going to be reading The Night Country. So in this reading vlog, I started with 258 books unread. In this vlog, I had 5 of those books. 3 of them I actually read, 2 of which I did not read, and so now I'm left with 253 books left unread. I find this successful. Like, I'm a little bummed. Obviously, every book I read, I want it to be amazing. I'm bummed that Crystal Blade did not work out, and I'm bummed that that series kind of fell flat for me, and I'm kind of bummed that I'm not excited to read the next book in this series. I'm bummed that I don't want to read The Night Country, but that's the point of like choosing these books in this order, because I want to get through books sooner, and I feel like by going through my entire series, if the series doesn't work out, then that's a reason to unhaul. That's it for this reading vlog. I hope you really enjoyed it if you made it this far. Thank you if you did. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about these books if you've read them before. Comment down below. I'd love to have a conversation with you about them. Have you read them? Have you not read them? Please let me know down below. I would love to know if you have any suggestions for reading vlogs, how I can dwindle my TBR further. So if you have any suggestions, any reading challenges, please leave them down below. I'd love to see what you suggest. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe. If you have not done so, you can follow me at Goodreads and Instagram. And you know what? I want you to keep reading. Bye.